Hi there. Welcome everybody once again to Cast Iron Wednesday, and this of course is a regular tradition. In fact, my phone's a little high. Is a regular tradition, well maybe not, that a lot of cooking channels have been doing regularly. That is of course doing a cast iron video on Wednesday, and this has been happening for several years on quite a few cooking channels here. I am unfortunately kind of like doing this in an emergency session because the laptop that I normally use to stream my live videos every Wednesday seems to have had a hardware problem, unfortunately. But I can see the folks there. It seems like your comments are showing and then disappearing after a few seconds, so that I could see Flash 1999 and Granny Graham and R.T. Scott and so far, oh yeah, and Jimmy Langford. So yeah, I can definitely still see you folks. But yes, it's true, unfortunately. As I said, the laptop was, I won't go into it too much because, well, obviously we're here to talk about cast iron, not about my laptop. But the laptop was, I had used it only 2 days ago on Monday, and it had worked just fine. So I got everything set up for the live tonight, and I poured about 4 quarts of oil into a big Lodge fish fryer, booted up my laptop, and it would not boot up. And fortunately, I know enough about PCs, you know, so that I didn't panic. And so I made a couple more attempts to boot up and saw it was not detecting the hard drive. Well, sometimes it seems like there is a cable inside the computer that is it's called a SATA cable, S-A-T-A, and that cable has been known to come loose every so often, so I thought maybe just something needed to be adjusted. And I opened up my laptop, and the hard drive just plain fell right out. Didn't fall on the floor or get damaged or anything like that, but it just plain fell out. And every time I tried connecting it properly to the laptop, it just kept coming right out again. So evidently, somehow between Monday and now, either the connector on inside the laptop that is supposed to connect to the hard drive went bad, or it's a physical problem with the hard drive itself occurred. And since this is a solid state hard drive, I'm more suspicious of the laptop. Especially since that laptop, as I found out, is a Windows 7 laptop that was then updated to Windows 8, Windows 10, and Windows 11. Yeah, indeed, time for a new laptop. You know, here's a real shocker, folks. Laptops don't last as long as cast iron pans. Who'da thunk it, huh? Yeah, I mean, only because they have an infinite number more complex parts that are likely to break, as well as, of course, there is that infamous theory in the electronics world known as planned obsolescence. But I won't get into detail about that because that's how it goes. Yeah, the short answer is, looks like somebody's going to be looking for a new laptop pretty soon. So anyway, here I am, and hello on my phone. Nope, not even close, as they say. 4Jim44, and hello, Val's Black Cats Rules. So yeah, I just had to get a new desktop myself. Yeah, so unfortunately, that's how it is these days. Yeah, one more joke, and then I will get back to the topic at hand. And you know, it was a long-running joke about an argument between Bill Gates and Henry Ford or Lee Iacocca or something like that. It's like Bill Gates says, you know, if Microsoft had built cars, at least it would be easy to upgrade, and they would last a long, long time. At which point Lee Iacocca says, yeah, but if on the other hand, if Microsoft built the cars, you'd have to pull over to the side of the road every 500 miles or less just to turn off the car and turn it back on. Make it every 50 miles. Okay, anyway, but enough about that. So nonetheless, though, here we are still. Once again, I'm presenting my rack because unfortunately this is a little limited as far as movement goes, and I really can't do this in my kitchen, and I'm sad about that because I have 4 quarts of oil sitting in my large fish fryer now that I'm gonna have to use in another manner. Well, I think I'll be able to manage that. That's all right. And it's funny, it seems like this is what, the second or third time this potato video has been postponed? So I'm sorry about that. Did you try unplugging it and plugging it back in? Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, that's how, yeah, the other thing is call tech support. Okay, comedy is not your line, Motomac. Yeah, you don't say. I mean, that's why I'm doing cooking videos rather than trying to be a stand-up comedian. Okay, but nonetheless, here we are once again, still eating. Hello, Papa. Dan, do you still have the Walmart 2019 Christmas pan? As a matter of fact, I believe I do in my collection here somewhere because, yeah, about 3 years ago, oh yeah, here it is in fact. About 3 years ago, you know these infamous Walmart cookie skillets. You know the ones that they sell at Walmart every year, and of course, antique vendors and antique shops usually sell these things as vintage cast iron pans, and sometimes you can buy these you see them on sale at antique stores for what? $10, $20 or so, even though it was selling at Walmart for only $5. But yes. In 2019, they did start putting the date on these pans. Although I would presume that they've been doing this each year ever since. So I'm sure there are 2020 and 2021 pans. Although a reminder as well, yeah, you're the only other person I've seen that has those. These things that they sell every year cheap in their cheap Christmas present section. Well, there's the thing though. Like everything else these days, unfortunately, prices have gone up in the last couple of years or so. In that last year, these pans that had increased their prices. I think they were like about $7. And then I saw these cookie skillets on sale at Easter as well, and the price had gone up to $8 then. So when these things come out again at Walmart this Christmas, and you know they will, I would not be surprised if you see it for $8. Who knows? Maybe they'll raise the price again to $9 or $10 for these little things. So if you already have 1 or 2 of these Walmart cookie skillets, well, good. I mean, you can, of course, get as much use out of them as you'd like. You know, the funny thing is that these things are so popular, too, probably because they're cheap. On the Cast Iron Cooking Group and everywhere, you know how people are always bashing Asian-made cast iron. Oh, it's Asian, it's worthless, I wouldn't bother getting it. And yet people always scramble to get these things when they come out every year. I mean, heck, you remember last year, of course, when they released the Star Wars, well, they've been releasing the Star Wars cast iron pans now for 3 years or so, and people go crazy over those. Last year, they even did a SpongeBob cast iron pan. Somebody on the Cast Iron Cooking Group came up with the best pun ever, and they called it SpongeBob Square Pan. And that was good enough that they should have actually put it on the box itself. Oh well, but yes, in short, yes, I do have the 2009 cookie skillet, so haven't had a lot of use for it because, yeah, found a stack of those at a shop for $3 each. I bought a 5-inch large skillet at Home Depot for less than $9. Well, that's a nice price. I have several other wonderful Asian pieces. Yes, I have several Asian pieces in my collection that I like as well. You know, this has been gone over many times, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over it again. And namely, that is, of course, 3 things. 1, Asian cast iron is safe. It does not have lead or spent uranium in them or anything like that. 2, the worst part about Asian cast iron is the politics. As you know, all those politics about commerce between China and the United States, some of which is justified. I'll be the first to agree and admit to that. Yes, there are problems, as you know, the trade wars and everything like that. And plus the fact that, yes, it's true, a lot of shoddy product has come from China. That is pretty much a given, and I'm not going to disagree with that. You know, it's like, even though some idiot trolls say things like that, oh, if you like Asian cast iron, you must be pro-China then. Oh, yeah, no. The simple fact is just that. Chinese cast iron, I mean, they've been making it for what, 2,000 years or so? It's safe, and it's safe to use, and unless you have political or personal reasons not to get Asian cast iron, then those are your things. The last thing I tend to say about this subject, of course, is this. If you find an Asian-made piece at a flea market, at a garage sale, at the Salvation Army, or anything like that, and you buy that piece, your money is not going back to China. It's going to go to whoever you sold it to. It's going to go to the Salvation Army. It's going to go to that yard sale vendor or that antique vendor or the like. China's not going to get your money on it. So I mean, really, even if you have a problem with politics from Asia and China and all that, if you buy used Asian cast iron here in the United States, it's not going to affect anyone. So really, quite frankly, there are some pieces of cast iron made in Asia that I would gladly would not mind owning. I mean, heck, I think I showed this one, and now I can't find it. There it is. I mean, I've shown this one before, for instance. You know, this is the one. This is the USA cast iron pan that I found at TJ Maxx at $10 on my birthday about 3 years ago. And yes, it is made in Asia. This particular pan here, in fact, TJ Maxx has their own house brand. You know, a lot of big stores have their own house brands, and they have a house brand as well called Smith and Clark. A lot of the stuff they sell at TJ Maxx, Marshalls has the Smith and Clark, and they even have an iron section which they call Smith and Clark Iron Works, and it's definitely Asian made. But heck, I mean, I certainly am not complaining that I have a USA cast iron pan. And that's really about all. Yeah, my Poiki pot was made in China. Yes, you're exactly right about that too. Yeah, because unfortunately, you know, Africa, or South Africa, I should say, is in a worse predicament than we are because, you know, large cast iron is still in business and arguably doing the best business it's ever done. In South Africa, unfortunately, the last manufacturer of authentic local South African poikies, Falkirk, they went out of business somewhere around 2010, maybe 2012 or so. So only a little more than 10 years ago. But they did go out of business. And so now all of these wonderful cast iron poikies that they have in South Africa, they're all, oh man, I keep forgetting how heavy this thing is. They are all made in China or Asia or maybe India or whatever and imported into South Africa for sale. Best Duty, in fact, is a very popular brand. And yeah, I have one as well, and yes, you are correct. Even though it's a South African poiki, it is in fact made in Asia, and I don't have any problem at all using it, and I love using it too, so. And that should probably end the political discussion about China. So yeah, at least on this channel and among this crowd here, there's no problem with using Asian cast iron. Largely because we keep the vast majority of the Asian politics out. I'm not able to scroll up. Am I able to scroll up? Let me put my finger right on the screen here. Hey, I can scroll up and see your comments. It's good for you, Karen. Tempers are cooling with temperatures. Yes, exactly. So, did you find anything at Brimfield? Well, you know, I ended up not going to Brimfield, unfortunately, for a couple of reasons. As it turned out, if I understand right, it turned out apparently it rained a lot last Saturday, so that was good. But more importantly, I found what I was looking for before I even went out to Brimfield. I showed it to you last week. I might as well show it to you again. Namely, this awesome number 9 sized 19th century gate marked skillet here. And really, it's like this. I had actually wanted to especially look for an eye out for something like this. Not this exact one, but something like this when I was out there at Brimfield. But then, lo and behold, I've actually found it at a local antique mall here in the in the Binghamton area. And so when I saw this, especially since I only paid, what did I say? I paid like $40 for it or so. And I figured, really, I mean, considering that I found this, as opposed to spending all the gas money to go out to Brimfield, plus a hotel, which I never had to do before, for a night in order to stay and then go to Brimfield, plus the fact that I may, even though there's a good chance I would find a nice 19th century cast iron pan at Brimfield, I'm not sure if I would have paid such a good price for it. So all in all, at least in my case, I feel like I got a better deal this way. So that's just me. Question is, deep or shallow fryer for chicken? I would recommend a deep fryer for chicken. Even if you don't fill the whole thing up with oil, even if you just want to shallow fry it, use your deep fryer or use your chicken fryer. For the simple reason is, it'll cut out a lot of the splatter, a lot of the grease. So I would definitely say, if you're going to fry chicken, a chicken fryer is one of the best pans to use for it, even if you're not going to deep fry your chicken. So I hope that helps, and that would probably be my advice as well, because, show us your chicken fryers. Okay, let's start with this one. Here we are. This is actually completely unmarked. There's absolutely no marking at all on the back. And usually I would say that if it's completely unmarked with no markings at all, you might think that it's Asian. However, this is actually an unmarked Wagner, and fortunately the handle is very easy to recognize. Wagner only made one or two pieces that had this circular hole there, and their chicken fryer was one of them. I'm not even sure what the other is. Griswold also made a couple of pieces with the circular handle as well. So yeah, this is definitely a number 9 sized unmarked Wagner chicken fryer, and I do like making chicken in this. Yes, it also comes with an unmarked Wagner lid, and that of course has the unmistakable sawtooth design on the inside, which identifies this as a Wagner. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this number 9 chicken fryer. And you know what? Yes, that's right. I got it at Brimfield, in fact. It's in one of my Brimfield videos. In fact, it's my most popular Brimfield one. The one from about 5 years ago, when the first one I made for looking for cast iron at Brimfield. You'll see in there, now the memory's coming back. I came across this vendor at Brimfield who was selling all of his cast iron at half price. And so, sitting right next to each other was the unmarked number 9 Wagner chicken fryer and a marked number 8 Wagner chicken fryer. So just because the number 9 was a little bigger, they were both the same price. They had a $40 price tag and they were half price. So I could have paid $20 for either one of them. And so because the number 9 was a little bit bigger, I decided to go with the unmarked one and so that's what I ended up with, a number 9 chicken fryer. To be fair, it was only the pot. I actually did get the lid separately, yes. But still, $20 for a number 9 sized Wagner chicken fryer. I mean, yeah, what does that say? I saw Wagner skillet was made in China. Oh, yes. That is actually well known. I mean, it's well known that Wagner went out of business in 1999. And I believe their last ditch effort was that the actual employees bought the company or something like that and tried to keep it in business, and it didn't work at all. For a very brief time, I think maybe we're talking a year, less than a year, they outsourced their production to China. And there are, in fact, a very few Wagner pans out there with a Made in China label. Not many, but they are. And they didn't last very long, unfortunately. So yes, it is true that there are made in China Wagner pans. Just checking these again. What's a good recipe for a dip coating or crumb? Oh, there are any number of recipes out there. I mean, I don't see why not. In fact, what I had wanted to do with my deep fry, and I probably still will, is kind of like do a two-parter, so to speak. I mean, in that I start with a flour dredge, and then you dredge it in your egg wash, of course, and then from there, dip it in breadcrumbs. So that's my thought. And of course, you can season the breadcrumbs with pretty much anything you want, and you could season the flour with anything you want. You know, you could put barbecue rub in the flour or the breadcrumbs, for instance, or your traditional herbs, or really whatever you want. So that's okay. That's what I was thinking. What is it? Pour castings. Large Dutch ovens don't have pour spouts. Yeah, that is actually true. You know, for the longest time, I thought BS&R was the only major cast iron manufacturer that put pour spouts on their Dutch ovens. In fact, let me show you. Here is my number 12 BS&R Dutch oven, which I'm sorry to say has actually developed a lot of rust on the inside. Not because of neglect, but I really feel it's because this thing is unfortunately fire damaged. So I am gonna have to throw this thing in the lye tank and then give it a big electrolysis treatment to try to get this thing working again. But it does in fact have a pour spout. This is a BSR Dutch oven with a pour spout. So when you see a Dutch oven with a pour spout, there is a good chance that it is BS&R. From my understanding is the very oldest Lodge Dutch ovens, some of them did in fact have pour spouts, but not many. One more thing about that number 12 BS&R. I've already said, and I even posted a video, that one there, unfortunately, is fire damaged. And while it can still be used, I've got to restore it again. I am still looking someday for a number 12 BS&R Red Mountain Dutch oven. It's not impossible to find, I just haven't found it yet, unfortunately. Hello, the Huggy Bear 516. Sorry for the confusion about what happened with the live tonight. Love my 8-quart BS&R Dutch oven. Nice, an 8-quart. That's got to be a number 10 size, I guess. That would be my guess, which is a really nice. I had a number 10 BSR Dutch oven for several years, in fact, until I got a number 12, and then I got rid of the, I gave away, shouldn't say got rid of, the number 10, because I judged then that I really wouldn't have a lot of use for both a big number 10 and an even bigger number 12. But that's just me. I can't speak for anybody else here, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you like it. So hello as well, William Hurt, and welcome, Brian. You should try deep fried pickles. Show the bottom. The bottom. Oh, are you talking about the bottom of the Dutch oven or the chicken fryer? Let me bring out that number 12 once again. Now, here's the thing about the number 12 chicken fryer. You'll notice this is a BS&R and it only has a 12 on the bottom. Yet, I'm convinced this is actually a Century Series BSR. And I just know this because I'm a nerd. Because the font size of this number 12 matches what we see on Century Series pans. Not the Red Mountain series. So this is why I think this is, unfortunately, more or less unfortunately, a Century Series Dutch oven. And that again, I'm gonna wear myself out tonight. That again is why I'm looking for a number 12 size Red Mountain Dutch oven. Maybe I'll find one of these days. So Is there really a large Grinch skillet? I saw a picture of it, in fact. I'm thinking that must have been produced as a promotion for for the animated movie that came out a couple of years ago, The Grinch. You know, the third. Yeah, I guess the third Grinch movie. The first one, of course, was the classic TV special, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. The second one was the so-called live-action Grinch, and the third one was the animated movie. And the fact that the animated movie has already been largely forgotten says a lot. It wasn't bad, but really nothing can compare to the original Grinch. Okay, good evening as well, Craig Werner. Just back from my evening walk, only a little bit late. Everybody's a little bit late tonight, so you have nothing to worry about. That's for sure. Is it true that the old skillets did not have the side small handle loops? Is that one way to tell age? Some of the earliest model Dutch ovens did not have these handles on the top. That's true. Let me just bring out one. I'm a little tired of lifting up that huge one. Here we are. Here is a Red Mountain number 8 size, which is much easier to lift. This one, as you can see, does have these loops on the side here, as well as a pour spout too. And this is in fact vertical. I think the vertical actually ears on a Dutch oven have been around for a very long time. Although some of them were not as developed as this. Some of them are really no more than just a little tab that they hooked the bail around. So, like everything else, they actually developed technology for their Dutch ovens over time. Oh, in fact, let me show you something else too. Here's an interesting one, a Griswold Dutch oven. But here's the interesting thing. You know, Griswold actually got a patent on their handle and the bail. I looked it up. You know, if you look up the patent numbers on in Google Patents, isn't Google amazing? You could actually still find the original patents that Griswold had. And this is actually kind of covered with seasoning now, so I'm having a little trouble reading it, but it's still there. Anyway, I found out that Griswold got a patent on their bail, on the design of their bail handle, because they designed it in a manner that allows it to stay upright with very little chance of it tipping over and spilling its contents. So they were very proud of that. And yeah, actually it's a pretty clever design too. So this again, by the way, is in fact a number 8 Griswold Dutch oven, which I have used quite a bit as well, because yeah, the number 8 size, just like with skillets, the number 8 size is massively useful in your kitchen. You know, the Griswold one is about 4.5 quarts in size, and so is the BS&R. The Lodge is about 5 quarts in size. All right. Those are called helper handles. Sorry to confuse. Is my 3-notch Lodge a reproduction? The mold mark is an indented letter L. All others have a raised letter mold mark. Well, Lodge lost a lot of their production records in 2 major fires over the years. So a lot of the details about those mold marks have been lost, unfortunately. And a lot of it has to come down to guesswork, unfortunately. So even Lodge doesn't know all of the details behind those mold marks. In general, I would not say that it's a reproduction. While in the early 20th century, there were, of course, those Southern mystery skillets, some of which probably did use Lodge as a pattern for the mold. But over time, I mean, Lodge has been producing those for decades. So the number of genuine lodge pans would really outnumber any reproductions immensely. And in general, if you find a 3-notch lodge, I would generally say that you are probably correct in that, yes, it is really a 3-notch lodge. Yeah. Counterfeits and reproductions, with some exceptions, are very rare in the cast iron community. There are some, and yes, we know about the famous counterfeit Griswolds and the counterfeit Wappic Indian heads. With those exceptions, I mean, really, reproductions are not impossible, but they're rare. Small logo Griswold, is it always after 1950s? Bought a number 10 skilt the other day and just curious. The inside is freaking satin. Oh, aren't they great? Yes. Those small logo Griswolds, they've got a glass smooth surface. There's no denying that. I'd actually wondered about why collectors consider the small logo Griswold inferior to the large logo Griswold, and I think part of it actually has to do with the history of the company. You see, the Griswold family, they ran into a lot of labor problems and management problems. Apparently, they really didn't manage the company and the foundry very well, unfortunately. They didn't treat their workers very well. So, while generally the slant logo Griswold is usually considered to be the highlight of Griswold pans, and large logo Griswolds are also considered to be phenomenal, the Griswold family completely sold the company to an investment group, I believe it was, in the year 1942, somewhere around there. And they finally just cashed out and got out of the business completely. So from 1940s on, the Griswold company was Griswold in name only. And that, in fact, was when they produced these small logo Griswolds. Up until the time when the Griswold foundry closed, of course, in 1957. So, small logo Griswolds are 1940s to 1950s. So not all of them are post-1950. But they are still phenomenal quality cast iron there. I mean, they really can't deny it. Right up until the point where the Griswold foundry closed, again, 1957, they had phenomenal quality, and I really have not heard about any drop in quality in the small logo Griswolds either. So, yeah, because cast iron production was really still in its heyday when Griswold and Wagner were both bought by, who was it, Textron, I think it was, and at that time. And so then, of course, Griswold was closed down and moved entirely into the Wagner foundry, and that's how that history went. But as far as, I really think it has more to do with the history of the company and those company politics, is why collectors generally value the small logo Griswold as somewhat less than the large logo and the slant logo Griswolds. But there's still phenomenal cast iron pans. And yes, anybody who has a Griswold, pretty much any era, I mean, you will definitely get a lot of use out of it. You're absolutely right about it being satin. Yeah, I will not disagree there. Are the Miss Thylacine, are the small side handles on the skillets, not the Dutch ovens, a later addition? I'm thinking they start those extra handles. Are you talking about the helper handles on the modern lodge skillets, for instance? I've got enough of those here. If you're talking about these, yes, they are a later addition. You know, I was told that Lodge didn't add these to their smaller skillets until like about 1998. So I honestly thought it was earlier than that. But yes, Lodge has been making their pans with these only for about the past 2 or 3 decades. So yeah, it's definitely a later addition. And, you know, just about every other company that has made skillets since then, with some exceptions, has done the same thing. And yeah, that's another thing. You know how really in the pretty much in the cooking community, what a lot of people like to do is bash Lodge cast iron. You know, Lodge cast iron is terrible. It's got such a rough surface. It really doesn't compare to Field and Stargazer and all the rest of those. And that, of course, is an entirely another argument there. And yet, Lodge is still so popular that there are a lot of companies now that are imitating Lodge skillets. You go on to Amazon and look for an inexpensive cast iron skillet. You will find there are literally at least a couple of dozen companies out there now. They're all using Asian imports, yes, but there are at least a couple of dozen companies that are producing skillets around the same price as a Lodge skillet. And they all look exactly like a Lodge skillet, right down to the helper handle. So Lodge must be doing something right if in fact if they're being imitated by so many companies. Let me see. See you tomorrow. Oh, sorry about that. My Lodge Dutch oven has a tiny helper handle and a handle that only rotates 90 degrees. Yeah, I would say they probably borrowed it from Griswold, in fact, for precisely that reason, so that it would be less likely to tip over and spill whatever was in it. So, I hear your crickets. Well, I guess the microphone on this phone is pretty good. In fact, I'm wondering if the quality might even be better than that wireless microphone I've been using. So, yeah, my wireless microphone does an okay job, but I still would like to find something better, quite frankly. You remember when I briefly tried a Bluetooth mic, and apparently it had a lot of static, and so I went back to the Wi-Fi microphone. And I'm still working on that right now at some point. Okay, I thought it was my house. Well, it might be your house too. I've been hearing them. But yeah, the crickets are definitely very loud at this time of year. No denying that as well. Of course, it's because I still have my windows open too. So that probably has a lot to do with it. So. All right, let's see what else we have. Victoria has that modern rough surface like mine. I actually will die on the hill. Victoria's design is better and modernized. I don't like that Lodge keeps that old hand-style handle, but nostalgia. Well, they all have their reasons, of course, for the way they design their pans. I mean, part of it, of course, is business reasons. You know, they've got their entire manufacturing is designed around those kind of designs, and it would be difficult to change them. Some of it is convenience, of course, but I personally, as well, I'm more of a fan of the thicker, heavier cast iron than the lighter cast iron. In that, I love my BS&Rs, I love my modern day Lodge, and I love the newer modern pans as well, including the Finex, for instance, or the Stargazer, both of which are actually fairly heavy. So, 4 likes. Well, William heard it probably had to do with the fact that I had to change this live video around at the last moment after my laptop crashed, unfortunately. So, all right. Thank you everybody, though, nonetheless, who's been kind enough to press like. So, and for that, I can only say as well that I am going to have to, as I said, I am going to have to do the potato video maybe next week or so. Meanwhile, I'm going to have to find another use for all of that oil I have sitting on my stovetop right now in the Lodge fryer. Well, I'll see what we can do about that. Somebody asked to see Stumpy. Okay. Let's bring him out then. Here we go. Here is one of the champions of my collection. And this is good old Stumpy. my number 14 size, made in USA. So he's definitely a Century Series. Birmingham Stove and Range, number 14 cast iron skillet. And yet, he's still got a smooth surface. I mean, this was actually milled during production. So this guy here, he is a real workhorse. I have given him a lot of use in my kitchen, and he has taken it all like a champion. So Stumpy is definitely a pan that I really have no intention of getting rid of, even though he's kind of hard to lift. I mean, what can I say? I've made pizzas in this pan here. I've made giant cookies in this pan here. I have roasted Thanksgiving turkeys and Christmas turkeys in this pan here. This year, in fact, I took old Stumpy on my X-Day Subgenius camping trip, and I used him as well at least twice to cook a pancake dinner on that pancakes on Saturday morning, and SOS, in fact, on the morning of X-Day when the world failed to end, unfortunately. So yeah, but good old Stumpy here. And of course, I call him Stumpy for a couple of reasons, one of which, namely, is that the handle is so much smaller compared to the size of this huge skillet here, but also because Stumpy here has a casting flaw. If you look at the handle here, you will see that there's this part here on the handle that looks like a piece may have actually been broken off. But I actually think that was probably a flaw from during production, because cast iron doesn't break like that. Anybody who knows that if you drop cast iron, it's more likely to crack or pieces or shatter, or the whole handle might even break off, as opposed to just a little chip coming off of the top of the handle here. So that's why I think this is actually a casting flaw. But yes, this is good old Stumpy. So mold didn't fill, that's certainly possible. I got that big 14 Lodge too. Yeah, well, I've said this many times too, and I mean it every time. I have become convinced that everybody, all of you folks out there, everybody really should get at least one really big cast iron pan. Whether it's a number 14 skillet or a number 14 Dutch oven or even a number 12 size skillet or something like that. You will get a lot more use out of that one big cast iron pan than you might think. Not only is it a great conversation piece, it is extremely useful. And so I will certainly recommend it in one way or another. I mean, heck, you could take it to family gatherings. You could take it to church gatherings. You can just, as I've said already, again, you can make pizzas in that. And especially with the price of takeout pizza these days, making your own cast iron pizza is an enormous cost saver. So there we go. Yeah, it is. My company, Pizza Dude. Exactly, that's the whole thing. So I would definitely recommend to everybody to get at least one really big cast iron pan. Huggy Bear. But I think all this cast iron is my pride and joy, and I love them all. From Tramontina, I send it out to Griswold. They're all great. What do you think of the Yeti skillet? The Yeti skillet was actually made by Butter Pat, which of course is a very high quality, modern day, and very expensive cast iron pan. So, what I think of the Yeti skillet is they could put whatever price they want on it. Yeti sells a lot of overpriced stuff, and yet they still manage to, they haven't gone out of business, so they must know what their market is. Yeti, and really not just Yeti, but pretty much all of those kind of sellers, even like Le Creuset or Lodge's new made in the USA enamel cast iron. This is not the type of thing that's going to be bought by someone who will go to Walmart and get an Ozark Trail cast iron skillet, and which is fine. I'm not bashing anybody for saying that. It's just that, yeah, I mean, they've got their own niche market and they obviously know what they're doing and they're just selling it for that. So I am not going to bash Yeti for selling a $400 cast iron skillet because, yeah, people can buy it if they want. And I'm not going to buy a $400 cast iron skillet because I don't need it. So, but that's just me. And sorry if I sound kind of vague, but that really I feel is about the best answer I can give about the Yeti cast iron skillet. So, my number 10 is big enough for my grass top stove. It's $400 your grandkids won't have to spend. Well, there you go. That's the thing. If you want to spend your inheritance, then that's your business. So, Little Mountain Ranch has a great video cooking with a 90-year-old waffle iron. Oh, yeah, and that's a lot of fun, too. Heck, just earlier this year, I got myself a Stover waffle iron, and I've been making waffles in that, and it's a lot of fun to use, too. So there's definitely something, of course, and of course, anybody who's cooked in vintage cast iron will know this. There's definitely something special about cooking in a vintage pan in that it's all the history behind it, too. That's something that modern-day cast iron cannot duplicate. I mean, there's pretty much no denying that. Hello, Mobley. Hello. Gotcha. But yes, so, I mean, that's really one of the biggest advantages, I think, of cooking in modern-day cast iron. There you go. Or not cooking in modern-day cast iron, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was Miss Mobley. So, Sportsman's Warehouse has their Sportsman Mark Yeti 20-ounce tumblers for $23. All of my cast iron is vintage or domestic contemporary. The boutique is still out of my budget. Well, there is that, and yeah, definitely you do want to keep the budget in mind, yes. I mean, I've told stories about some of the scores I've made in my collection that I'm really proud of. In a few cases, I did actually end up splurging and spending more than I probably should have on a cast iron skillet. I mean, what can I say? Like, for instance, there's the New York cast iron skillet from the American Skillet Company, which I kind of admit I got largely because they're discontinuing their United States cast iron pans. So this was really the last chance, I think, to get this pan, and I kind of succumbed to temptation for that. And I really should stop succumbing to temptation. It's not a good thing. Vintage stores suck. They'll have rusty old iron and want a premium just because it's old and cast iron. Well, unfortunately, that does seem to be the case with a number of these places. Can't deny that. There seems to be 3 rules in when it comes to vintage cast iron. Old is good, big is good, old and big are better. So yeah, that's especially why those huge cast iron cauldrons have these incredible prices, and probably more than most of them would be worth, in fact. So Yeti is nice, but I would rather spend the money on the hunt. Found a Griswold large block 14 for just over twice the price. I'm saving up. Well, it sounds like you got yourself a good deal then. So yes, I can only say congratulations to that as well. What do you use for your E-tank? Plastic tub, and what is the biggest size that it'll do? My E-tank is, in fact, a plastic tub, one of those Rubbermaid tubs. And it's about 20 gallons in size, I think, which is not really that big for a Rubbermaid tub, all told. On the other hand, I don't run my E-tank night and day like some folks do. And when I say some folks do, I'm not dissing them either, because, you know, to each their own. There are some people now, especially this dude here on TikTok, and he's on, he's doing some on YouTube as well. Cast Iron Chris. This is one of those professional cast iron restoration guys, you know, the guy who's making a living out of restoring cast iron. So of course he's got his E-tank running night and day, and he's always talking about these wonderful Griswold pans that he's restoring, and they do look beautiful, and he really does a great job restoring them to fine condition. Nice guy to chat with too. I've sent him messages and commented on his TikTok videos, and he's commented on a couple of mine, so which is nice. But I don't use my e-tank night and day, partly because, you know, it can actually affect your electric bill. That's one thing. So I'm more of a fan of using the Lie tank probably more than anything else, because of course the Lie tank is just a set it and forget it type of thing. You know, once you get that going, then you know, once you can just toss pieces in the Lie tank as much as you want until it's full, and you can leave them in there for months, and you can just pull them out whenever you feel like it, and then just clean them up, and that's a lot of fun in that way. Hey there, hello country boy. I'm curious about that big cauldron behind you with the silver top. What size is it? Oh yes, you were talking about one of the pride and joy of my collection. I can see that there. There we are. And that would be my 15-gallon Savory Company cauldron. That was made in the Savory Company of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it was made in anywhere from the early 1800s to the late 1800s. The estimate that was given to me on that particular cauldron is that it's probably somewhere around maybe 1850 or so. And yes, it is 15 gallons in size. It does not have a silver top on it. Rather, it's an aluminum top. It's an aluminum lid that I found, that I got from, I forget if it was either from Cajun Cookers, I think it is. You know, one of those places down south that sells those huge jambalaya pots. And I managed to find a lid that actually fits this. But yes, indeed, that is in fact a 15-gallon cauldron. And if you look on my YouTube channel, you can see there is a video, in fact, of my making, actually 2 videos of making jambalaya in that huge cauldron. And yes, indeed, that was a lot of fun. It was also quite a project when you figure that I had to get like 20 pounds of chicken, another 7 or 8 pounds of sausage. I had to use 12 pounds of rice. So yeah, that was quite, each time I've used that has been quite a project. I am definitely looking for excuses to keep using this cauldron, and I can only hope the opportunity comes up soon enough. So that cauldron will also make a good witch prop for Halloween. Well, you know, I've actually considered, but I really need to look up into it, whether or not I could genuinely rent that out as a movie prop. I mean, actually put advertisements out for movie production companies and the like. You know, that they could rent out that cauldron for use in their TV shows or movies or anything like that. Could be done, I suppose. On the other hand, I'm pleased to say I have a slightly smaller cauldron that's also vintage that I regularly use on Halloween. In fact, I filled this one up with, okay, let's get this one out now. Got a couple of other things to move here. Okay. Here we are. Come on. There's 1. Come on. And 2. There we are. Here it is. Like this one, namely. Now, this is an unknown cauldron. It has no manufacturer's mark, and I really have no way to identify the manufacturer. But I believe it is genuine. I would estimate this thing to be, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 quarts in size, I suppose. Now, the real reason why I think this one is genuine is because of the ears. Notice the flat top ears here on the sides. This, I think, more than anything else, is a sign that this probably was made in maybe the 1800s or so. I mean, granted, it does also have this sprue mark, you know, that was made during the manufacturing process when 2 halves of the mold came together. And of course, it has a gate mark on the bottom. Now, this particular one here, you know, this actually does not sit flat. The legs on this must have been broken off at some point because it does not sit flat. Let's get down to the floor again, if I can. Okay, why is this thing not allowing me to move this down to the... There we go, that's a little better. Okay, this, right about here, wobbles, and it does not sit flat. So the actual legs appear to have been broken off at some point in the past. Maybe one leg was broken off and the others might have been ground down to for it to match. So that's probably one reason why I actually got a nice bargain on this particular cauldron. But this is a nice size, and a lot easier to carry around than that 15-gallon cauldron, I'll say that. That 15-gallon will fry some good fish. Some good fish and chicken. Yes, it will. No question about that. That's for sure. If it doesn't sit flat, you could call it Eileen. Yeah, well, fortunately, even though this thing doesn't sit flat, it works just fine if you hang it from a tripod. So there's no problem at all with that. Now let me put this down. People have commented that I tend to grunt and groan a lot in my videos. I don't even have to say why, and I'm sure you understand why. So, George Lewis, I have a 10-inch Lodge camp oven with the legs ground off, a yard sale find. It needed a good home. Well, you would still be able to use it. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with that, that's for sure. And I'm hoping you do get a lot of use out of it. It would be fine to take camping, for instance. It could be hung from, it could be just from being used a lot. I can really turn up to 10 amps. Oh, you must be talking about your E-tank. I can turn it up to 10 amps and it really cooks. Time to make y'all jelly. My very first cauldron was my very first win from Mudbrooker. Nice. Well, congratulations on that, Cynthia Wesley. All right, still going down here. Mower blades are one type of metal that I use, but I get tired of cleaning them every day. Yeah, that's the other thing, of course, about the E-tank, the sacrificial metal. Basically, the E-tank is wonderful. It does a great job. It removes rust and gunk and can make a pan look as good as new. But it does have some disadvantages. It can be difficult to clean. You have to replace those sacrificial anodes. And as mentioned, it can run up your electric bill. So it goes. Hang it on a pod and do baked beans. Yeah, I really think I need to do another video of baked beans. It's actually been a few years now since I've done a decent video on Boston baked beans. Did you just type in variable power supply on Amazon? I could smell the burning pecan mixed with the hickory under that thing at the hog killing now. Boy, yeah, you're definitely bringing some, giving us some interesting, I guess, things to think about. What are your thoughts on the prices on the red and blue cast iron books? They're obviously out of date, but by how much? Do you think resale value prices on certain brands has increased? Resale prices have definitely increased. Quite frankly, the red and blue books, you know, to be honest, I never got them, and I don't have either the red or blue books. So I cannot really say that much about the red and blue books. Yes, I know what they are. The Book of Wagner and Griswold and the Book of Griswold and Wagner. And I realize that they are excellent reference materials for old Griswold as well. Way back in my coin collecting days, I used to have a copy of the Red Book, you know, the famous reference book that tries to be the definitive guide to coins. And I know the red and blue books on Griswold and Wagner are like that, and they're definitely in need of an update, because especially thanks to the internet and the explosion of popularity in cast iron over the last decade or so, A lot, yeah. I mean, those prices, I would have to say, are almost certainly not really accurate. So, I mean, partly because of eBay and because of antique vendors, that all they need to do is to see the word Griswold, and whatever it is, they'll slap a ridiculously high price on it. So, it's really hard to judge these days. I missed Monday's live show. I appreciate, yeah. Yeah, well, yes, no. I mean, that's because I was there. Well, I wasn't there in New York on September 11th, 2001 when it happened. I do have some friends who were there, but I mean, I watched it on TV as well. And so, yes, I mean, that affected me as it affected just about everybody. I mean, no denying that. And that is a subject I'll talk about at another time. I mean, I talked about it on Monday, but I'll talk about it at another time as well. When will you fashion handles to slip in the handles so you can power lift? I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about something to help lift up all this heavy cast iron, sounds like a good idea to me. Because, yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, yeah, you've heard me grunting and groaning, and, well, really, sadly, I'm not as young as I used to be, unfortunately. Slip into cast iron handles. Little boy and fat man. Yes, and I know what little boy and fat man were, too. Okay, my football watchers love your beans. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I've got a friend down in Texas who calls Boston baked beans candy because they've got so much molasses and brown sugar in them. Most people don't get excited over those skillets. Well, that's the thing. Even today, I mean, what can you say? Cast iron has made a great comeback, yes. And it's probably, hopefully, at least I hope, it's inspired the current generation and the youngest generation to do more cooking than the previous 2 or 3 generations ever did. So, and I should know, I'm one of them. I've said enough times already that, for most of my life, I would have told you that I couldn't cook to save my life. I was bitten by the cooking bug in December of 2010, which means it's 13 years ago, which still means for more than 2/3 of my life, I could not cook either. So I was another one of those microwave persons who really, again, did almost no cooking. And quite frankly, I am very happy that I learned how to cook, and it's something that I really want to keep doing pretty much for the rest of my life. Even if I stop doing these videos, I certainly don't want to stop cooking. Because it's fun, because it's cheap, you save a lot, and because, again, you get so much great food when you cook. All right. I mean, the late Wagner stuff after they acquired Griswold. I'm kind of missing the train of thought here, George Lewis, unfortunately. I mean, I know we were talking about that, but I'm kind of missing where we were, I'm sorry to say. I mean, I've seen elderly couples have used cauldrons in water bath canning. Yeah, that's another thing I've never done. I've never done canning. And I suppose if I were to start that, I might find myself with yet another addiction. So I don't know if I want to yet. I mean, these YouTube videos take up a fair amount of my time, as does my full-time job. So, all right. You were a numismatist? Well, sort of. I got into coin collecting when I was about 10 years old. Largely because my parents had gotten into coin collecting. My parents went through so many hobbies as we were growing up. They would seem like they would acquire a hobby that would last about 4 years or so, and then they'd drop it like a rock and move on to the next thing. My parents, over the years, they got into coin collecting. They got heavily into the Boston Red Sox. They got into metal detecting. They got into geocaching, got into shooting guns for a while, got into fish, and actually started an aquarium business over that. Got into the World Wide Web and actually refurbishing computers. Got into fishing. Got into using a boat. Got into motorcycles. You get the idea. They came and went with so many hobbies, and so of course, as their kids, they kind of got us into their hobbies. Not all of them, but the coin collecting I really enjoyed. For a brief period of about 4 or 5 years. And then, yes, I moved on to, but I never forgot it. And I still remember all the great things about the old coins. And that was one reason why I was so excited last year when Lodge released the Walking Liberty skillet. The Lady Liberty skillet that's based on the Walking Liberty $50, because it did actually bring up memories of the days when I was coin collecting as well. And it reminded me yet again of my mom, because Mom always said the Walking Liberty $50 was one of her all-time favorite coins. She considered it to be very special to her. So yes, I definitely had to grab this when it came out for nostalgia reasons. Not to mention the fact that it is a beautiful design. There's really no denying that. So that's why I'm quite glad to have the Lady Liberty skillet. And yes, in fact, I have suggested to Lodge a couple of times, and they have not replied, unfortunately. I would love to see Lodge do a line of skillets with the designs of some of the most famous American coins. I'd like to see Lodge do a skillet with the 1804 silver dollar, or the 1933 Double Eagle $20 gold piece, for instance. Both of those are wonderful designs, and I would love to see a cast iron skillet with that design on it. So yes, so I was not a heavy-duty coin collector, but I know something about it, and I found it to be fascinating, and I would love to see more of that from cast iron as well, for whatever that's worth. We finally found a Lady Liberty skillet. Well, congratulations on that, Rocket Caber. You know, the Lady Liberty skillet is so beautiful, there's really no other word for it, that I'm pretty sure that one is going to be a collector's item. I mean, I know they say that about all of these skillets, and Lodge really has been catering to the collector's market lately. You think? I mean, what can you say with their Yellowstone skillets, their re-release of the Wildlife series, their Made in America series, and the Cracker Barrel skillets, and so many others, and they seem to be coming out with a new collectible skillet every year. Not all of them are going to end up being collector's items, I think, of course. But I think the Lady Liberty skillet is going to be a collector's item. I think the 2020 and 2018 Made in America skillets are going to be collector's items. So, for that matter, the Rosie the Riveter skillet, I mean, I probably would suggest getting that as well. I don't think the Rosie the Riveter skillet will last forever. I mean, Lodge may produce it for another few years or so, but that's not the type of thing that's going to last forever. They're probably going to be producing their current Made in America skillet forever. The one that has the American flag and the big Made in America logo. Because it's a nice design. I mean, it is cool. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's patriotic, and of course it's a cast iron pan, and it's a good pan to get. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get someone a present, get them the Lodge Made in America skillet. Even though it's not really going to have much collector's value, because I think Lodge is probably going to be producing that one forever. For whatever that's worth. I worked at a bank for a while. Favorite coin was the 1923 silver dollar. Oh yeah, I remember that. Was that the peace dollar? Yeah, 1923. It's a shame they didn't come out with one this year, because it's 2023. It would have been a 100-year commemorative for it. How did the Field Company lighter and more expensive skillets stack up? Are they good? I think I know the answer, though. Oh, I see. You're probably talking about this one. The field skillet, in fact. Here is the field skillet. This was recently sent to me as a present, in fact, and I did not expect to receive it at all, but I'm glad to have it. Field, probably more than any of the other modern day cast iron manufacturers, I really get the feeling Field is trying to continue Griswold's legacy. They're really trying to market this with the same appeal that would appeal to someone who might want to buy a Griswold skillet. Plus the fact that they're trying not to make their pans too expensive, even though there's no choice. This thing still costs more than $100. But then again, so do many Griswold pans if you buy them on eBay or at an antique mall. And this is a very nice pan too. I mean, definitely this is a joy to cook in. By the way, it does not have a glass smooth surface. It is actually how can you describe it? Not sandpaper. It's finer than sandpaper. It's a finer grit than sandpaper and much finer than a modern day Lodge skillet. But it is actually not glass smooth. And the reason for that, I'm certain, has to be, again, just so that it can be easier to season. And it does a great job too, as you can see. You know, this is a nice pan. And I have done occasional videos, and so have many other people, comparing these modern day cast iron skillets. I've done Field versus Stargazer versus Finex versus Lodge Blacklock, for instance, and so have a lot of people. And the general conclusion always turns out to be the same. They're all wonderful cookers. They are all great for cooking. And if you have any one of those, you will love it. So, I mean, and of course, naturally, people tend to be biased towards the ones they own. The people who have Finex skillets love their Finex skillets. The people who have their Stargazers love them. The people who have their Field skillets love them. And why not? The short answer, of course, is that they're cast iron pans and they're wonderful for cooking. They've done a lot to really try to even improve the cooking experience, because of course, you know, they want to be sure you're getting your money's worth from it. In fact, I've got to move this over here. By the way, a Lodge lid fits perfectly on that Field skillet, but it does not fit perfectly on the Stargazer skillet. Because, yeah, as I said, they're doing their best really to try, you know, naturally they have to put as many selling points into their pans as they can, and I don't blame them at all for that. But even so, it gets down, I guess, to the question of whether or not you feel it's worth it to buy an expensive piece of cookware or an expensive kitchen utensil. And I can't give a definitive answer for that, because really for everybody it's different. I mean, why would you get a Field skillet or a Le Creuset Dutch oven or a Schun chef's knife or Global chef's knife, for instance, or those expensive copperware pans? Why would you do it? Well, in a lot of instances, it's not the type of thing you're going to walk into Walmart and just buy at the drop of a hat. A lot of these, it's generally considered to be something special. A wedding present, a Christmas present, maybe a birthday present. You know, something really, really special that they feel is worth the investment. And with a lot of these companies, I would say that's probably the same thing. In fact, Lodge, I've noticed, they are promoting their made in USA enameled cast iron enameled cast iron Dutch ovens in that manner. They are really pushing. If you look at the advertisements that Lodge is putting on their Facebook page and their YouTube channel and TikTok and all that, a lot of the times they are saying, give the USA enameled cast iron as a gift. They're really pushing for it in that manner because they know it's something special. It's an investment that you have to make. So you're not going to buy it at the drop of a hat. And people have their own reasons for getting something like that. I mean, heck, I've got myself a Toyota Scion. Why do I have a Toyota Scion and not a Porsche? Well, number one, I can't afford a Porsche, that is. But people who do have a Porsche, they've got their own reasons for it. Maybe some of them might even be stupid reasons. I've got a Porsche because I'm incredibly rich and I want to show off to all you poor people. Hey, that's their business. If they want to spend their money that way, then they can do that. But that's really, I guess, what it comes down to. Again, when you're talking like Field or Stargazer or the like, I mean, I've been incredibly lucky as well over the past few years. A lot of these have been gifts. I mean, I've said enough times, I have not asked for them, and thanks to everybody who's been kind enough to give them. I probably would not have spent the money on a Field or a Butter Pat or a Stargazer. Now that I have them, of course, I think they're terrific pans, and I'm very happy to use them. So I really don't have a definitive answer for that, for whatever that's worth. I was told by elderly family members the old cast iron is the better quality iron cookware. Well, here again, part of it is a little bit of bias. I mean, there's really no way around that. I mean, they grew up obviously using their old cast iron pans, and they are wonderful to use. And they were cheap in those days too. I mean, even the Griswold ones, I mean, yeah, they were still something of an investment, but I mean, really, in the end, they were just a frying pan. So it's not something that they would mortgage the house to get. So obviously they've got their biases, and a lot of those biases are justified. Just like folks who use old cast iron. I mean, I said myself only a few minutes ago, not one of the nice things of cooking in vintage cast iron is the history behind it, in that you get this sense of history that you simply can't get with modern cast iron. And that's certainly true. So there are a lot of good reasons to use vintage cast iron. It's probably cheaper. You can probably still find it at yard sales or inherit it from your parents or grandparents or the like. And if so, use it for the rest of your life. Because it's not, I mean, unless it cracks or breaks, it's not going to wear out on you, like my laptop did earlier tonight, for instance. So, and the best I could say in that instance is use it with pride. If you've got yourself a collection of Griswold pans, go ahead and use them. If you've got a collection of Asian-made cast iron pans, go ahead and use them. If you've got Lodge or Field or Finex, I guess that's really the thing I like to say is go ahead and use them. I'm a big fan of trying to use as much of my collection as possible. It's difficult, but I'm doing my best. I'm not really a fan of having most of these for display. I do have one or two, yes, because I succumb to temptation. But in general, I'm doing my best to try to make up my collection of users. And I would say that to anybody. If you buy yourself a $400 Yeti cast iron pan, go ahead and use it. Get your money's worth out of it. I mean, maybe that's about the best thing I could say. All right, Louisiana Telecommunications. They had no intentions on them being big collector's items. No, that's true. In fact, there were some interviews with the late executives and employees at Birmingham Stove and Range who were really amazed that their pans have become so popular about 30 years after they went out of business. And apparently Saunders Jones Jr., the last CEO or president of Birmingham Stove and Range, was quoted as saying, "We just made skillets." They didn't, like you said, they didn't plan on making collector's items. They made them obviously because it made them a profit. They were a profitable business, but they made them because they were useful. And these are still useful. Of course, now they are putting a lot of collector's value in them too. So, I don't think there's a bubble as far as cast iron is concerned. Maybe there might be a collector's bubble. Maybe in the next couple of decades, some of the fancy cast iron companies like Field or Stargazer might go out of business. Maybe. But on the other hand, their pans will still be with us. And just like the old vintage cast iron pans, we'll be able to use those pretty much forever. So even if they disappear, their pans will still be with us. I'm getting up there and don't want to lift the stuff so much now. Well, there is that. I mean, I certainly don't disagree. I use your big cookies recipe. Really? Well, thank you very much. Are you planning on doing this for Halloween? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a bad plan, actually, now that you mention that. Make a huge cookie. Maybe I should give that out for Halloween. Last year I had, I don't know, maybe a dozen kids, maybe less, which was still a lot better than I'd had the last few years. And I'm hoping to actually have some kids come up for Halloween. Maybe I'll do that. I'll put some candy in the cauldron, of course, because you gotta have candy. And maybe I'll make a giant cookie and give that out as well. So that might not be a bad plan. Thank you very much for the suggestion, especially since I have the day off from work. So I'll definitely consider that. I set up a show with a lot of cast iron and afterwards went home and laid down. Yeah, I know. It does wear you out, doesn't it? I mean, heck, in a few minutes I'm going to be done here tonight anyway, and I'm going to have to get to bed too. And then I'm going to have to figure out what to do with those 4 quarts of oil that are sitting in that pan on my stove now. Well, actually, I have a couple of plans already. I'm going to make a couple of short videos in the next couple of days, for one, and I hope you like them. So, okay. Yeah, we are getting into that time as well. Jimmy Langford, I have Griswold, Wagner, Martin, and BSR, mostly BSR. People can't hand out homemade treats here in Nebraska. Yeah, I know we're getting into one of those subjects again, and it is really, yes, because, I know you may not trust them, plus the fact that trick-or-treating really is not what it used to be. I mean, even though they're pushing Halloween candy, I mean, Halloween candy's already been in the store for like the last 2 months now. When it actually comes down to it, it seems like they're not taking kids out for trick-or-treating anymore. They just take them to the mall. So who knows? Okay, but nonetheless, that's encouraging to know. From here on out, I'm collecting old iron skillets and older Dutch ovens. Well, just do what you, number one, get what you want, get what you can use, and get what you can afford. Don't break the bank over something like old frying pans because it's probably not worth it in that respect. Do you have your mom's or grandma's cast iron? Only a couple of pieces, unfortunately. When my grandmother passed on, her cast iron went to one of my cousins, who was also her granddaughter, so I didn't have the chance to get that, so it goes. On the other hand, I do have a cast iron pan that belonged to my other grandmother, my father's mother. She actually did have this pan here, which turned out to be a favorite, well, maybe favorite, Diamond 8 skillet. So yes, this actually did come from my grandmother, and in fact, this was the first pan I cooked in when I moved into my new home last year. So I'm very glad about that. So I do have a couple of pans that I got for my own parents, and then when they passed on, I re-inherited it back from them. So go figure. But on the whole, I mean, I've got enough of a collection here that while I do have a few pans that I got especially out of nostalgia for my mom and my grandmother, like the Griswold square egg pan, for instance. All right, we do too. I got one of those 8 and a diamonds. Yes, and it is nice, isn't it? I mean, really, it's light and very smooth. I mean, it definitely could compare that to Griswold, I'd say, quite frankly. All right, oops, what did I do here? I only got 2 pans from my mother, and my brother got 1. Well, use them with pride. I mean, at least even if you did get 2 pans from your mother, and so that is still something really to cherish. And I would definitely say to cherish them for that reason. But again, we are getting on in time here, especially since, as I said, this was kind of like an emergency live meant to fill in time because my laptop crashed. And yeah, I can see that's going to be my project this weekend. I'm going to have to start looking into another laptop, unfortunately, but so it goes. I like the way that you hung the skillets across the top. Well, yeah, I mean, this actually was a later design. I only did this within the last couple of months or so, but I do like it as well, especially so that it can fill up space and has a better way to display it. I could not get these things straight. They just kept bending from the weight, and so I had to put those wooden bracers on the top there in order to keep it straight. But now that it's done that, it's working pretty well. But on the whole, yeah, enamel is great for baking or heavy acid ingredients. Definitely, yeah, that's... anytime I make my family recipe for Italian pasta sauce, I always use an enameled cast iron pan. Is it okay to E-tank a plated Griswold? I have very little experience with that. I'm told the E-tank should still work okay. But I would advise getting your advice on that from somebody else. And I'm honestly saying that because I might be giving you the wrong answer. But I do feel it's about time to be moving on here because I do actually have to get to bed, unfortunately. And then, as I said, it looks like I've got some projects to do. I've got to do a couple of frying videos so that I can get some use out of that oil on the stove. And I've got to start preparing to look for a new laptop this weekend. That's actually not going to be too hard because I'm not going to get one of those $2,000 gamer laptops. I simply do not need one of those. But I'll just see what I can find. It would sound great in a California earthquake. Okay, but as I said, I'm feeling that we need to, well, thank you very much as well, Dottie. But I can only thank everybody for showing up here or for being nice enough to show up here, especially since, as I mentioned, my laptop crashed. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to have any kind of a live session at all tonight. But I do want to get back to cooking in the kitchen. Yes, it is 9:30 p.m. here as well, but it is a Wednesday and it is a work night and a school night too. So for a lot of us, we do have to be heading in, unfortunately. So especially since I'm not as young as I used to be. But we will always continue this, and I'm hoping that I'll be back with hopefully a new laptop by next Wednesday, and then we will finally get down to having some fun cooking, or at least I hope so. I'm in the market for an enameled Dutch oven, and Lodge has started developing chipping. Oh, well, then, yeah, I'd say it's definitely time to start looking into one there as well. So, but thank you very much, though. Thank you for everybody who's been kind enough to show up tonight. Terry Sinchev, Val's Black Cats Rules, CE Rums, and Gunter 45, and Clico, and RT Scott, Miss French Twist. It's always nice to see you folks here, and I can only thank you so much for showing up here. Because as I've said enough times, it's you folks here who really make these live videos a lot of fun. And that's one reason why I still wanted to do this, even if I'm doing it on my phone. Because again, I didn't want to miss spending time here with you folks. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming by and for enjoying yourselves and for making this a fun thing to do every Wednesday night. And we will wrap this up and do this all over again next week. And likewise as well, I believe Louie usually does a live video on Thursdays now, and Mudbrooker does one on Tuesdays. So we'll certainly be keeping busy. And yes, you all keep on cooking, as you say. Good night, everybody. And as I like to say every time, from 2001. See you next Wednesday.